All right, I'm here with another teardown interview. Talking today with Ruben Gamez. Gamez, sorry, Ruben. How's it going, man?
Right. Good. How you doing, man?
Good. So Ruben is the founder of bidsketch.com, a proposal software. So Ruben, why don't you tell us, the quick elevator pitch about Bidsketch, so for those who aren't familiar with it.
Sure. Bidsketch is a web app that's used to create, send, and track client proposals and get them electronically signed as well.
Awesome. Very cool. So your target customers, I assume, are mostly freelancers. Do you work with like agencies and consultants? And how do you think about your target audience?
It's gotten a lot more broad. In the early days, it was just designers. It said, the headline was proposal software made for designers. That was mostly freelancers, and we moved and we expanded to web developers and all that stuff. Nowadays, we have, they make up maybe a third of our customers. And we have also a lot of marketers, people doing SEO. We have people in home services. Nowadays, we have a lot of other industries.
Interesting. I guess that might be just freelancing in general has become bigger and broader into all sorts of different industries and spaces too in the last few years.
Yeah, that and just the way that the product's been positioned and the who the product has attracted. So a large part, maybe. So I would say maybe half of our customers would identify as freelancers. The rest wouldn't.
Interesting.
So either entrepreneurs or agencies or sales or something.
Yeah. So as far as I can remember from following you and Bidsketch, you guys have always been doing content. So like how far back does that go in your strategy? Have you been doing content since the very beginning, or when did you start really investing time and resources into it?
Yeah. Before writing a line of code.
Oh, really?
That's how early. Yeah. So I remember I had the idea for Bidsketch, and one of the ways that I was thinking about it, because there weren't any other web apps that did this, so it felt more risky. So I thought, okay, well, how can I measure or gauge some sort of demand? And one of the first things that I did was keyword research to see if they were looking for proposal software. They weren't. So then the next best thing would be like, okay, what are they saying about proposals? Anything related to client proposals. I was just doing a lot of research around that and seeing if they were searching for proposal templates, something that would help them, anything that I could use to lead them into the software product. And I found a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Not a ton because the market's pretty small, but for me, as a first product, it's just like, okay, there's something here. So based off of that, the next thing I was just learning about marketing was, how can I do this? Can I actually get some of this traffic? Theoretically, I knew how it worked. Like you have these keywords and people are supposedly searching for them. And if you write content, then you should be able to get some of this traffic. So the very first thing that I did was put up a blog, wrote content focused on some keywords. And I think it was within 2 weeks where I started to get some traffic to that. And I thought, wow, okay, this is working. Cool. I think I can do this.
So, what were those very first few points of metrics that you were looking at to say, oh, this actually is working? Was it just basically top line traffic and organic search traffic, and you were looking at that?
Yeah. So at the very beginning, it was that. Then the next step was to put up a landing page to get email addresses, and seeing if anybody was interested enough in what I was offering when I did, when they did get to that blog post or other blog posts that I wrote.
Got it.
Direct them to that landing page and see if they were interested enough to actually give me their email address.
Very cool.
And they did. So that was sort of gauge that,
a first level of validation there when you were getting started.
Yeah. And then the other thing that was really encouraging, adding an incentive. That at the very beginning there was no incentive. It was just email address. This is what we're, and then
next incentive, add a free guide or something to download.
Free template.
Template. So actually, that's something I wanted to ask you about. And I'm going to jump around in your story. Just kind of fast forwarding to today. several years into it, Bidsketch, one of the leading proposal software out there, web applications. So right off the bat, when I was clicking around the blog today, you click up top, you see proposal resources, and it's pretty clear that you're definitely going after that proposal templates search there. I mean, you have pages dedicated to specific proposal templates, like web design templates, freelance writing templates, sales consulting templates, and so was that kind of where you started? Was going after those kind of searches, and then that's where you saw the most traction, or it became more strategic later on?
Yeah, early on, it was both. It was a combination of, it was almost like blog posts, and it was actually more blog because the other proposal templates just didn't have enough volume to bother with them. So there were just 5. And over the next first year or something like that, we created the 5 that had the most volume. So like graphic design and marketing, I forget what the other ones were. We have a lot more. So at some point we changed our strategy and said, it was kind of like a gut thing. Even though supposedly there isn't a lot of volume according to the data, there's just so much overlap, and a lot of the stories that we've heard over the last few years indicate that if we create proposal templates for all these, just get very specific about the industries and the types of projects, we'll get we should get more traffic than the data indicates.
And that's highly qualified for the type of product that you're selling. So makes sense.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, a person searching for proposal templates is thinking about creating a proposal, and that's what you guys do, right? Right,
but anyone since then, I've talked to a lot of people that have had proposal apps who've wanted to sell their proposal apps to us, and we've had a lot of conversations looking at their data and all that. And a few of them copied our strategy, and the conversion rate is actually really low from proposal templates to sign up to the product. Even though intent is there for proposal, there's a big difference between, there are a couple of things that play. There's a big difference between free and paid app.
Yep.
Then frequency as well has a lot to do with it, and being tied, and paying for a subscription.
Got it. So, your template resources listed on your site, you've got these big hubs of template downloads. That's only one piece of your overall content strategy. Obviously we're seeing, pretty frequent new blog articles coming out from you guys. You've got a free guide, downloadable lead magnets and whatnot. What does your overall strategy in terms of content marketing look like today from a high level? How do you think about it in terms of the hubs of where you focus your energy and piece everything together?
So I'd say ours is mostly focused on organic search. And that's organic search through a lot of different ways, through the blog, through the templates like you talked about, through just our homepage, just for proposal software and related stuff there. And the blog and the email, we heavily focus on email capture. Mm-hmm. So it's super important we're a little aggressive sometimes with email, not too much. A lot more people are way more aggressive than we are, but so for example, on our homepage, if you go to our homepage, there's when you first go there, there's no top navigation. Like a traditional SaaS homepage, you'll see, tour and pricing and all that stuff. Yeah. We don't have that. So if somebody comes in, we don't have big buttons like sign up for a trial or anything like this. So if you go there, the main call to action is to sign up and get a free sample proposal, and we basically funnel everyone through email. And then after you get the sample, we'll reveal a nav and the rest of the app as a way to sign up for the trial. But we just found that we get more customers that way. So if we test it, and it's a tricky thing because we've tested this a lot of different ways, a lot of times, but it appears as though if you have more of a traditional sign up process, more of a direct, less friction there to your product, that you're going to get more signups on the short term. But in the long term, you're actually going to get less customers. That's just what we found, because you're not building up your email list as fast as you would otherwise.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I noticed that you laid out your homepage that way, but I didn't realize that you actually limited the ability to sign up for Bidsketch. Like the first thing that you're asking for is to download the sample proposal, and then it reveals the next steps. And then I guess over email they're receiving content newsletters and follow up, and that kind of brings them through your sales process.
And the blog these days is most valuable in two ways: organic search, like just getting fresh traffic through that way, and converting. Light is coming in. Converting people on our list into paying customers.
Right. So there's plenty of people who come to the homepage, enter their email, get a proposal, and some segment of them will eventually buy like during that first week, but I'm sure many of them just aren't ready to buy today. They need a few weeks or months before they're really in the market for something like this.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We did jobs to be done interviews with people to figure, and these are interviews where you're just trying to figure out the job that they are hiring your product for. And we did switch interviews, which are people that just switched to your product, just started paying for your product. And you capture the story. Instead of asking, why did you sign up or anything, you just ask, what did you do? What did you do? Why did this happen? Why did you follow every step of the way, and it just becomes clear why they signed up or paid for your product. So it was really interesting in a lot of these stories how someone might have had like some very typical. Somebody talks about like, well, yeah, something came in last minute. They were on they just had a flight. They weren't, they didn't have access to their stuff. So they decided to search online. They signed up. They saw that we had templates. And then they remembered, oh yeah, I got something from them before. And they dug into their email and they saw us on email. Mm-hmm. Or another really typical story is they needed to create a proposal. Something came up for a new service. Something that they're not used to. So then they were dreading it, and they remembered that, hey, isn't there something related to proposals that sometimes people remember? Like, I get those Bidsketch emails. They do proposals.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they don't. It's funny. Sometimes people they thought there's a tool about proposals. Let me search, and they search their email, and like we come up, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like our email inboxes are kind of becoming our own personal search engines these days.
Yep.
Very interesting. So, what does your operation look like? I'm sure early on, were you doing content yourself early on, and today I know you hire writers. Like, how did that progress over time?
Yes. So early on, it was just me. I wasn't. I am a very slow writer, so it was taking forever. Let me move this over here.
No problem.
Sorry. All right, that should be better. So it took a while before I hired one writer and just contracted that out. Nowadays, we typically have about 5 writers. Contract writers.
Got it. And how?
So I don't write any of the content, and we don't have any editors.
So the writers kind of edit themselves.
Yep. So
and what is
the hiring writers? It changed because of it. So in the early days, I was essentially the editor. I'd have 1 writer, 2 writers. I'd check everything and all this stuff. And I switched at some point where I just started hiring writers that were a little bit more expensive, mm-hmm. but were better in that they didn't need editors in that way, and they were already doing what I needed them to do. They either already had an audience or had proven in some place in another blog or somewhere else that they could write exactly the type of content in the way that we needed. And any writers that needed editing, I tried them out for a little bit, or guidance. I would just tell them that it's not a good fit. We can't work together.
So what did you look for there, and what how do you what makes one writer better than another, and what makes a writer require more editing and one is more self-sufficient, like in your view?
The way that I generally test them is I give them several example posts. We also have like a document that has just background research information. In the very beginning, I just hired a writer today, and we're going to go through this process. In the very beginning, the first 2 posts or so, they'll send me topic ideas, and I'll gauge like how I'll give them a bunch of information about what we need and how we work. And then the very first 1 or 2 posts, I get to see how well they translated that information. And I know that this works because I've hired a lot of writers. Mm-hmm. So I know how well they should be able to come up with topic ideas, outlines, and posts. Then after the first 2 or 3, by the 4th post or so, I'm not even looking at the post. The very first time that I look at the post is when I go into the WordPress blog and see that it's pending.
Got it. And so, well, what kind of information are you giving them up front? And what kind of, I think you said you have some data or guidelines to begin with? Yeah.
So, there's basic stuff like number of, between 1,500 and 2,000 words post, most posts. It can go longer. That's a sort of a loose range and guideline.
I mean, how about like your topic and understanding your audience? And
so it gives topics like sales, marketing related to self-service businesses. Also can be stuff productivity and mindset. So it's a little loose and flexible there. And we have a lot of also data collected about the top pains from surveys. Like these are the top things that they struggle with. These are things that they want to know more about. These are posts that have done well in the past. These are examples of things. So there's just a document that has a lot of that sort of stuff.
Got it. So, okay. So once a writer is on board, they're tested, they've been putting out great work. What does your week-to-week process look like for, let's say, like one article to go from idea to published? And then after that, we could talk about what you do with promotion, but just to get to like the producing and publishing.
After I know that they're good and they don't need any guidance, then they don't get any guidance. Then I have no idea how often. So basically, what I say is
I have no idea how stuff is done. It just shows up on the blog.
It pretty much. So I don't need to. I don't like. It's not. If I know too much about it, or they need help or need too much, then it's not working. It's just too, like for us, it's too much overhead. For me, it's too much. So literally what I say is, okay, we need, from you, we need 3 posts a month. Whether you do them at the beginning of the month, at the end of the month, or split them out in the middle, like every other week, however you want to, who cares? Like at the end of the month, the only thing that I need to know is that there were 3 posts delivered. That's it. So it's kind of like a queue. We just have a queue of posts, and I'll go in there and pick one out and then publish it. And then we'll email our list. And I'll take a quick look just to make sure that everything's still good. But it's really just a quick look, and I can tell pretty quickly, like, someone's sliding or.
Got it. So the writers are kind of writing, and they're doing, say, 3 articles a month. They're doing their own editing. They set it up themselves in your WordPress blog. They're formatting everything. They're putting the calls to action and the images. And like, do you have a separate designer, or do they do their own images?
No, they just get their own images. Yeah.
Got it. And then they set it up as a draft, and then you're in charge of publishing, and you kind of decide what this month's calendar of content will look like to the public.
I guess I don't do it. I just do it like just in time. Basically, I don't do like I don't have a calendar of with dates or anything like that. And that's with our current product. With our new product, it might change. It might be a little bit more structured than what we have now. So the process that we have now is really like a queue.
Got it. So, okay, I do want to talk through what happens after an article publishes. So let's talk about that now, and then after that, we'll talk a bit about how you're planning to, because you guys are releasing a second product from your company, and we can talk about how things are going to change for that. But okay, so an article has published. What happens next? How does it gain eyeballs, and what are the kinds of things you're doing to promote and build traffic over time?
So nowadays it's different than what we did in the earlier days. In the earlier days, we didn't have as much of a list. So nowadays we just leverage our list mostly. Like we get about 7,000 new email subscribers a month. Wow. So our list is decent size, and that's pretty much all we need most of the time for what we're doing, unless we have something special. In the earlier days, when we had a much smaller list, we had to hustle more to promote the content. So in those days, it was a combination of everything from, like, we did a lot of stuff, everything from the basic stuff to, of course, all social so I'll talk about an organic search thing a little bit later, but all the basic social stuff, turning it into, if it was something good, turning it into a SlideShare deck, posting on, like LinkedIn or whatever, doing paid ad.
I was going to ask, like, do you or have you done like promoted posts and that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Doing that, which I think, like, I don't know why more people don't do that. Huh. It's so easy.
Do you still do that today, or is it really just email blast? And
every once in a while, but yeah, not as much. But in the early days, yeah. And then another thing is we've always had, most of the time, somebody doing guest posting. So like right now I have one person, sometimes two, going out and writing guest posts, and it's their job to also include some of the posts that we're just writing in their post that they're,
Got it. Is that person also doing outreach to get those guest posting opportunities?
Yeah. And it's been really hard to find people that can manage that process or want to do that process. Like a lot of writers don't want to do that.
Interesting.
So finding someone that wants to, and then even if you find somebody that wants to, finding someone that's good at it is another thing. Because what happens with people that haven't done it before is that they'll say, yeah, and it sounds good, and and then they start doing it and they get really discouraged because there's no
a lot of unanswered emails.
Yeah.
Any like specific tactics or strategies that you know about that you can share about just getting landing guest blog opportunities that are actually worth your time? Because like, how do you rank the value of guest blogs and that sort of stuff? So what I like, and what I've done this with SlideShare, is find people that are already so like the person who's doing guest posting for us, he was somebody that I saw doing guest posting on a lot of blogs. So you kind of like
people that are like this are people that oftentimes have relationships with a lot of blogs. So then with a lot of people that run blogs, so a lot of editors and stuff like that. So then it becomes easy for them to just write guest posts because they have an open invitation. Or like with SlideShare, we needed So the very first time I created anything with on SlideShare, it's like, okay, who's consistently getting up there on SlideShare? And then just looking at all the top people, and some of them are companies, whatever, people that I can't hire. But sometimes they're like freelancers or people that I can hire. And like the first time we did anything, I hired somebody that just consistently was getting up there on the front page, and asked him. He was within our range. Paid him. He did it, and then he promoted it, and it got on the first page.
Very nice.
Just basically piggybacking off of people that are like, that's I guess with content marketing, that's the thing. It's always been trying to work with people that are already doing the thing that we need.
Right.
And in the content world, it's not that expensive.
Yeah, so you've been focused mainly on like contract writers, freelancers, and things. So what are those ranges of what you pay, and where do you find people?
So I would say range would be, it's generally like $200 to $300 a post. Mm-hmm. Is what it is. And that's even with the guest posting. So like the guy that I have doing guest posting, I think he's charging us like 12 cents a word, and then he has a $25 fee for guest, for managing that process, $25 per post for managing that pitching process and all that stuff. But a lot of other writers that have been able to do that, it's just like more of a per post sort of thing. That's generally how I do it. And then for
like where do you find them?
Yeah, so same. It's just going to blogs that have a lot of people guest posting. That's everything from ProBlogger to Kissmetrics to it's like there are all these. It depends on your industry. So like for where our customers, a lot of our customers are, we know that they're what the blogs are, and we know which ones allow guest posts. Like Buffer is a big one that used to allow. I don't know if they do now, but I don't generally look at the Buffer blog too much because that's not really our audience.
It's not. Right. Got it.
So it's got to be both.
Very cool. So I just want to kind of wrap this up with one final thing. So you guys are planning a new product. And it's a different product, but it's still a software as a service, if I understand it correctly. So, how are you thinking about content marketing and how it's going to change to support the initial launch of the new product and ongoing a company that has two different products? Like, how are you thinking about changing from a content standpoint?
I think what we have going in Bidsketch, the way it's going, will kind of stay the same. The new product will be different.
Different site and everything.
Different site, different everything. It's a different brand, and our approach is going to be different. One thing that we do with Bidsketch is that we'll primarily write for something that we just think our list will get a lot out of based off of just what we know from the past, right? And then what we'll do is we'll go back every once in a while and we'll adjust certain posts to focus on organic. So we'll go back and we'll say, okay, let's change the title here and focus. We'll do some keyword research and just say, this is a good one to focus on this. So that way, because you get initially, like if you don't do that, you just get the initial bump of people coming there, and then it just goes down. And like maybe you get a little bit of organic traffic. But if you go back and you really focus on, if you change them up, not a ton, you have to change a little bit of the content sometimes, the title mostly, and you're good. So that's been our strategy with Bidsketch. On one thing that I learned, I have a personal blog. And it's very different. Like, it's been a very different way of getting traffic to that blog than the Bidsketch blog, and it's never been a really big priority for me. But the last few posts that I've written over the last few years, like let's say the last 3 years, have gotten a significant amount of traction. A lot of them way more traction than any post on the Bidsketch blog. We're talking like 800 retweets and a ton of comments and things like that. Several posts, like consistently the last few posts.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the crazy thing to me is just the way that I've done that is way different. It's so different. It couldn't be more different than the way that we've just gotten traffic to the Bidsketch blog. And so you have like different types of content marketing. You have like the more virally sort of content marketing that just gets shared, is dependent more on Twitter, which most people don't get traffic that way. Most of people really get a little bit, maybe if they're lucky, and then it's mostly organic.
It's more, yeah.
Right. So the
personal stuff, I assume, is a little bit more opinionated, and it's also a different audience, right? Like an entrepreneurial audience.
Right. It's a different audience, but they're tightly knit, just like on our Bidsketch blog. So you'd think it'd be equivalent. I think the difference has been, so for example, for that one, when I think of writing a post, I'll just look back at my past tweets. And anything that's gotten like a ton of faves, it's like, oh, okay, this has been interesting to people. So then I've written something there, and then I'll go and reach out to a couple of people like, hey, either thought you might like this or you asked about this before, wrote a post about it. And these would be people that have larger audiences generally, right? Or include them in there. And then they'll promote it, and it's weird. It's just been entirely for that blog, entirely through Twitter. And then the other thing that's been I do this with both blogs is for sort of like Q&As. I include them in posts, and what I mean by Q&As are not just like Quora, which we've done that in the past, and that's kind of like okay for a longer term strategy. But I mean like help of a reporter out, right? A service like that, where somebody's looking to write a new post.
And for those who aren't aware, so help a reporter out, Harrow is like this email list that you can get on, and every day you get reporters who are looking for people in certain industries to provide quotes and input for potential news stories, basically. Right,
and it's free.
Yep.
It's great. So in there, it's like answering a few of those requests with an answer and a link to a relevant, really good something that that.
So it's like starting with a question first, and that can be a good jumping off point for a full article. So what's interesting so the difference between that and like answering Q&A on Quora is that the ones from Harrow will often lead to more stuff. They'll either write a full article, or they'll ask to do an interview, or they'll promote it in some other way. It's been really interesting how those are different. I think because they're in the process of creating this type of content or something. Yeah. So just thinking about like you're launching the new site, the new brand for your second product. Are you looking at your personal blog and thinking about like, well, what has worked there?
So,
versus
I'm looking at
and
how we're going to integrate a little bit more of that into what we're doing with the new one. I'm also a really big fan of what Digital Marketer is doing. So we're going to take some of their approach, which is they work backwards from a funnel perspective. So it's almost like they think about, okay, well, we have a product, and these are the different things that people are interested in that can lead the people into our product, right? These are the different categories. So what's the tripwire ebook or webinar or whatever that we need to get people into our product, and then work backwards from that? What would be a good piece of content that we can use to retarget or warm up people to get them into the webinar or ebook, into whatever, right? So it's all starting from like selling, and every piece of content is aimed at like getting paying, right, using ads to get people to that content. So it's like it's a lot less
the product
content.
So
but a lot more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it a few different places now and seen it. You know, looking at like this, like the hub and spoke strategy and
Right.
10x content. Sometimes people
Right,
call it where like
not that many people are doing it.
Yeah,
really.
you know, I'm seeing it done more and more with SaaS products, and I think it's a direction that we're going to start taking audience apps in terms of structuring our service that way, the way that we do it for clients going forward. You know, because I think that it's there are very few I think Bidsketch may have already reached the level where you have these email subscribers and they do come back on a weekly basis to get general advice about, you know, consulting and freelancing and that sort of stuff. But very few SaaS products, their audiences look at them as like news media sources. They're products and they have some expertise in a very specific area, and you should showcase that expertise in some in-depth, long, deep resource guides. And you know, I mean, there should still be ongoing content coming out, but it should be really focused around getting people to these hubs of content that are so related to the core problem that your business solves. You should be educating about those problems too. And you know, and you're able to use, if they're that valuable and that useful for you to get customers from, you take those pieces of content and you can repurpose them in a lot of different ways. Right.
And basically, you're now, instead of just getting traffic through from a blog post, you're doing it. The starting point is a video of the same sort of content, or a deck, or an infographic, or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Or taking like 10 articles about this topic, put them into an ebook.
Yeah, and it sells. It gets you customers.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Ruben, this has been really helpful. I know people are going to be going back through it and picking apart your content strategy here. So, really, really helpful. Thanks for doing it. So you guys can definitely check out bidsketch.com, and their blog is at blog.bidsketch.com. Ruben, where else can people connect with you?
On Twitter, EarthlingWorks. That's my handle.
Very cool. All right. Well, thanks.
Thanks.